You are the Rebbe Mesiyim and Masechta Kedushin, right? Tafnid Alf Mesiyim Masechta Tainis. Tafnid Beis, don't ask me the rest, that's all I know. Mesiyim Masechta Rosh Hashanah, it was Shabbos. Now you have to understand, the Rebbe's revolution was first beginning, right? That terrible, terrible, terrible sin of learning Nigla and Shabbos, Rahman Litzlan, Bepares, yeah. The Rebbe was still pushing, you know. So he made a hadrin. He was Farbrengen Shabbos Chafov, and in he made a siyum of Rosh Hashanah, but it was based on a mind from the Rebbe Marash about Brichas Kehanim. You know the famous word about the Ma'ila Brocha, the Ma'ila Tefillah. It was a nigudik hadrin, but it was he was able to get away with it. You know the Altam, the Gen Zitzen on Shpilkes or Mitch Shpilkes, I don't know what. But the Rebbe made a siyum with Shabbos Rosh Hashanah, Shabbos Chafov. So the Rebbe had to still deal with the fact that in the olden days learning English Shabbos was a big avera. I mean, the Rebbe considers any limud atera a bigger mitzvah than Shina b'Shabbos Tainuk. Yeah. But anyway, so in that Farbrengen, the Rebbe started Farbrengen with a vort that's really unbelievable. It's an unbelievable vort. I want to say something that's really not so easy to say about Avim. But it's Barabim, it's just the people that made him live. I remember where I stood. Chof of Tovshin Nunaf, Shnas Tinose. I remember where I was standing. I remember exactly when the Rebbe spoke to Sicha for his father's yard site. Now you must remember that mamish weeks before that, the Rebbe was given his father's folder. The Rebbe was given his father's file. I don't know if you know this. The KGB gave out files to people that they tortured and killed to their Bnei Mishpacha. There were Anash, Lubavitchers.
In the high 80s.
In 89, 91 this was.
Oh, yeah.
There were people who got their father's tikim and their father's blood was on it kipshutei from the torture. They were fasting in Chabad at that time, the cross-examination with Rebbe. I don't remember fasting everything. But one of the things that they printed in Chabad then was that they took all of his ksavim. The Rebbe's father had bookcases, not shelves, bookcases of manuscripts, of notebooks. What we have is only the Torah that he either sent to the Rebbe in letters, or what he wrote on the few svarah that he had when he Fashik, the Zayar and the Mishnayos. Huh? That was all from the Fashikung, when he was away. And they wrote in the file that they took these ksavim, it was hundreds of notebooks, and they realized that it's not neged to the case, so they burnt them. And the Rebbe saw that. In Kenachas Ruch is from them the Chaim Shol once told me, Chaim Shol Brook, that the Nazis have been verbrannt. The Nazis burnt. He says when the Russians wrote they burnt, they probably put it away in an archive. Because I remember that Chof of the Rebbe, the Vav Tishrei in the base, where the Rebbe mentioned, he spoke about his mother, that who knows, maybe we'll find the Ksavim. So I went over to him then, and I said to him that they wrote, Matzei Farbrennt. So Chaim Shol told me the Russians didn't burn, they saved everything. The Geshrim and the Farbrennt. In other words, it's B'derech HaTeva possible that they saved them, but it could not have given the Rebbe too much nachas ruach to read this. The picture, remember the story of the picture? The picture suddenly showed up. And none of us believed that it's the same person as the picture we had. And when the Rebbe and Chana brought the Rebbe the picture of her husband, and I don't know how the picture got here, I don't know if she carried it with her Russia, the Rebbe wrote on the back, a more question mark. He didn't recognize his own father. The photo that they had in the tik, that's how Rabbi looked. He doesn't look good in the picture because they made him take off his yarmulke and he was not in the best of Maimon Matzav. But the picture that we had Amol, he looks so old. It's just a few years after. But the Rebbe said the Chof of Nun Aleph, ich kann mich vergessen, mir brennt es. Der Tate hat Zeichen gewesen zu leiden Yisurim begashmis. The Rebbe said that. Imagine a son saying about his father, the Tate hat Zeichen gewesen zu leiden Yisurim begashmis. The Rebbe said that. It's a tape. Don't believe, the Tate hat Zeichen gewesen. When the Rebbe got sick, and I bin nicht von the Drehers, the Rebbe had Yisurim that are not normal. The Rebbe got Yisurim that they were not real. I was never standing under the window, but I always flash back to that the Rebbe said, the Tata Zeiche gewesen, Salat Yisurim Begashmes. This is a Maimon Amuzgar. Why am I saying it? In his head, the Rebbe had headaches after the stroke. He had pains that were not, you couldn't do anything about it. I was not from the dreyers, but ich was gehet men atzad. The Rebbe had Yisurim that were, I don't know what they call it, but there was no illness. You can't fix it. It just hurts. Anyway, I wanted to share this.
But on the sciatica, he used to scream out.
That's before. Yeah. I'm talking after the stroke. Yeah. So the Rebbe spoke about it. The Rebbe spoke like this. It started the Farbrengen, that with the famous words of Mesiras, which the Rebbe repeated many times, that the Mesiras had a Maggid who came to him and looked with him Torah. And the Mesiras wrote down that Torah in a sefer. It's called Maggid Mesharim. You can buy it in the bookstore. It's not hard to get. Maggid Mesharim. It's an interesting sefer. Everything is with a date. And it's written in Aramaic. The Mesiras lived 500 years ago. He wrote the book in Aramish. Who spoke Aramaic 500 years ago? He wrote in Aramaic, not in Hebrew. Malachim. Malachim, no. They read all the Sprach and the Chutz Aramis. That's why the Kaddish is in...
That's how they understand Aramaic.
They don't understand Aramaic. That's why you say Kaddish in Aramaic. Malachim shouldn't understand. Malachim based on all the Sprach and Oyster Aramis. Anyway. Okay, nicht again. So he writes in the book that his Maggid told him that he was going to be zeicher to the inyan of Mesiras nefesh HaKodsh Hashem. Can you imagine? He was. What's going to be his great effect? And he's going to be zeicher to the inyan of Mesiras nefesh HaKodsh Hashem. And then the Maggid told him that he lost that schus. What he had done, what Aveda he did to lose that schus, I don't know. But the Maggid told him that he lost that schus. So the Beis Yosef forgot to die. He lived close to 100 years. And in times that he lived in time, that's like 2 lifetimes. He lived a very, very long time. And he wrote the most important Sfarim we have. The Kesef Mishnah and Rambam, the Beis Yosef and the Tur, and his own Shulchan Aruch, and noch Sfarim. The Beis Yosef. The Rebbe said once in the Farbrengen, as it stated in Megillah Sester, Vayikaru Seifrei HaMelech Ba'esahi B'chedesh Harisha B'shleisha Asa Yem Bey, that the Seifrei HaMelech, the scribes of the king, were called to the king on the 13th day of the first month, the month of Nisan. And the Rebbe said this goes on the Beis Yosef, and the Rebbe did Tzemach Tzedek. They have the same Yartzeit. Yud Gimel Nisan, isn't it interesting? The Rebbe said in Farbrengen that they have a Yikaru. The Rebbe didn't take that many Sefer. Also the Rebbe Bashafran. Where does it say this? In which Sefer did it say? Sefer HaMelech, Lashon Rabbim, goes on the Beis Yosef, and the Rebbe did Tzemach Tzedek. Yud Gimel Nisan, the Yartzeit. So the Rebbe said that if this all happened after he lost the schus from Mesiras nefesh HaKodsh Hashem, there's a kamash malon. The kamash malon is that when one yid is meisen nefesh al kiddush Hashem, it has a greater impact in this world than writing the Kesef Mishnah and the Rambam and the Beis Yosef and the Tur and your own Shulchan Aruch. Think about it. In other words, that's the Ungevaran. He lost the schus of Mesiras nefesh HaKodsh Hashem, and he wrote the most important svarim that we have. Mamish, the most important svarim that we have. So you have to say that when one yid is Mesiras nefesh HaKodsh Hashem, it accomplishes more than writing the Beis Yosef and the Kesef Mishnah and Rambam and all these svarim. It's unbelievable. In other words, Mesiras nefesh is nit nar azach v'tutzach av nemus al yenim. Mesiras nefesh is not only happening in the higher world; it's happening in this world. In other words, even Mesiras nefesh. Even Mesiras nefesh. There's a story from our generation, which is, they have it on the video, Faithful and Fortified, but they took out, I think, part of the story. You know the story, but I'm going to share it anyway, because it's our generation, not the previous generation. That in 1975, I think, or 76, they came to the Rebbe from the Paralympics. Everybody knows that story. That it was after the Yom Kippur War, and there were many, many Nechei Tzahal, many wounded. This what they gave it out now. It's Lamed Vav, right? It's a Lamed Vav. So the Rebbe, they asked if the Rebbe would be willing to see them, and the Rebbe was very happy. The Rebbe came downstairs, and he spoke to them And you can hear the tape. There's no video. They put pictures on the tape. In Ivrit, in Ivris. And after the Sikha, the Rebbe went down and he went from chair to chair. He shook each one's hand and he said thank you and he gave them each $1. The Sikha that the Rebbe spoke, you have to listen to the Sikha. It's the Rebbe. It's very formal. The Rebbe's not emotional. He's not, what's the word, empathizing. But the words of the Rebbe were so unbelievably healing. They said, it was the first time that somebody didn't patronize them. Everybody puts on schmaltz. The Rebbe spoke to them emes, but at the same time it was very encouraging. What the Rebbe explained, they gave a push to Zach, and the Rebbe says, steht in Chassidus, the suge von a Balmum. You have in Samach Tzedek in Derech Mitzasecha, why a Balmum can do the Beis HaMikdash. Samach Tzedek says this word more or less. It's basically the Tzaddik and the Baal Tshuva. You know, inside the Beis HaMikdash is the Tzaddik, outside the Beis HaMikdash is the Baal Tshuva. What the Rebbe told them was that there's a physical teva, that when a person is missing one of his limbs or skills, the body is conditioned to compensate using another one. Like Chas Hashem, a person can't see, they become very good at hearing and at touch. It's a fact, it's a physical fact. So the Rebbe said to them, you are compromised. He didn't say the word you. If a person is deficient, so you make up for it using other koiches and chushim, and you accomplish not just as much, but more than people who have all of their faculties. And that's what the Rebbe said famously, they should be called mitzuya neitzahal and not nechetzahal. But when the Rebbe explained it, he wasn't making them feel good. He explained what makes the mitzuyan. What makes the mitzuyan is not the wound. What makes the mitzuyan is the adaptability. What makes the mitzuyan is their ability to, I'm missing this, I'll make it up with that. The Rebbe spoke to them, so delicious. It's so incredibly sensitive and empathetic, even though it's a sikha, like any other sikha. Anyway, but Bekesha to this, apparently there were some people who had yechidus. And one of them was a guy named Levi. And he told the story to someone who told the story to me. He told the story to someone who told the story to someone else, told the story to me. But they printed it now in Gem, in the Faithful and Fortified. He was wounded, and he thought his life was over. The Rebbe gave him, he became very successful. The Rebbe gave him brachas, he became an extremely successful man. But anyway, he had a yechidus, this Levi, I think his name is Levi. And in the course of the yechidus, he said to the Rebbe, he wants to ask the Rebbe a question. Could he ask the Rebbe a question? He could ask. So he told the Rebbe a story that they were in the Negev, they were in the Sinai, in the Yom Kippur War. And it was the Derech Pesuach, exactly what the halacha says about Orei Asfar, Shalei Tehei, that Kalali Kosher, what the Gemara Nagamara is, you know, it shouldn't be easy for them to enter into the land. Etzisrael was a sitting duck. What's the lashon that the Rebbe used to bring us? Shaloi Yehei Haaretz, something lefneim, easy to enter. That's why you have to take out Shabbos with the Klezayin and the whole thing. But there was no defense. We had the Bar-Lev line, they punctured through the Bar-Lev line like it was not there, and they're coming to Tzro. He was with a group of 20 guys in one tank, and they were told by Arik Sharon over the phone that they cannot retreat, because there's nothing between them and Tel Aviv. They have to stand and fight, you know what I mean? They have to die. That's how it is. And in a war, this is what happens in war. They were told they're not allowed to retreat. So they were waiting for the Egyptians to find them, a whole army. So he tells the Rebbe that we're very depressed. I understand that they know what they have to do, and they're going to do it, but it's not geschmack, you know what I'm saying? So one of the guys in the group was from. He's telling this all to the Rebbe. So he got up, and he said, no, Zandani is in the north. That's a Maisa with the tanks in Syria. It's a different story. Zandani lived. He got up and he said that they hate us because we're Jews. It's not about land, it's not about politics, it's about Jews. And they've hated us forever. And always for the same reason. Every time it's a different lavush, but it's the same hatred. And that they're going to kill us because we're Jews. Let's die like Jews. Let's be Jews. And he was more ordered by them a rotzen to fight. They knew they couldn't win to fight. And the mood was lifted. So this guy Levi says to the Rebbe, they got ready for the battle, but they were much more, not optimistic, but positive. And I said, this I didn't know, I said to myself, he tells the Rebbe, that if I survive, I'm going to put on tefillin every day. Anyway, the Egyptian army found them, and there was a firefight that went on for a long time. They were outnumbered. It wasn't even a. Anyway, eventually the Egyptians retreated. They stopped, and they looked around. They were all alive. The frum boy who had woken them all up was dead, and I lost my left arm. He tells the Rebbe, I can't put it on if I want. So he says to the Rebbe, could you explain this to me? In case you ever have a Rebbe aspirations, this is the way to talk you down. You don't want to have to answer such a question. Could the Rebbe explain to me this? So the way I heard the story of the Chatchila, in the video you don't see it. They took parts of the story out. The Rebbe thought for a moment, and the Rebbe said he'll answer him. And the Rebbe said to him like this, that when this frum boy got up in front of all of you, and he was me'ered by you, a preparedness to be Mesiras nefesh, zu sterben für jeden, Mesiras nefesh Kiddush Hashem, hat me'ered gewesen sein eigenes Kiddush nefesh. He awakened in himself a readiness to be Mesiras nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. And the Eibishter decided he's going to take his carbon. They took this part out of the video. The Eibishter decided to take his carbon. He says, and you, the Rebbe tells him, the Eibishter wants you to know that he doesn't love you because of the mitzvahs you do. This is the story. The Eibishter wants you to know that he doesn't love you because you do mitzvahs. Hatali bazoi. This is a story of Mesiras nefesh in Heintekendor, you know. Mesiras nefesh in Heintekendor, nicht amulige Zeiten. Mesiras nefesh Kiddush Hashem. You know that everybody says this is. Everyone wondered what would happen when Israeli boys, you know what it means, we're fighting a war for 20 months. But they wondered what the what the smartphone generation is going to do. The Israeli soldiers have toughness. They're Yidden, as they with the Zaydes gewesen, as they with the Zaydes gewesen, und the Zaydes. They have such resolve. They're Yidden. And they should only let them fight. I mean, that's what the bottom line is. This is not an occasion for talking politics, chas v'sholem. But the inyan Mesiras nefesh, you see it b'chlal b'yin. It's unbelievable. Somebody told me once that the Eibishter is postponing Mashiach is a leptzachop. Weißt doch, von die alle Sachen, aber es ist genug. Anyway, mir lebe Baruch Hashem. So for us, Mesiras nefesh is an andere Sache. It's Mesiras Ratzon. It's a different thing. And in a way it's harder. But anyway, this is our connection to these days and to these people and to these inyanim. Every person sitting here is here because they have a Heilig Azayde or Azayde Zayde. We're not here by mistake. And we have to use the opportunity to be Yidden and machen. Afet das ein Yid. Okay, l'chaim v'chaim l'vrocha, divas daf ma'abach achrena, v'amachan zichar abarach achrena. I just want to bitte den Goss. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm collecting checks. No matter what donations. I had two. So I don't know. That's true. But then later on, the Israelis used the army as a tool to make people frei.
I understand that, but is there
It's a complicated parsha. It's not for now.
Ya na 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 ya ilada ya ilada da ya na ya ilada da ya yo ya ilada ya 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 la da la dum ya da ya 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 da ya la da la ya da ya 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 da ya la da ya 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 Hawaii, Terera ma 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 ya ma 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 ya ma 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 ya 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 ma ma Terera ma 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 ya ma 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 ya mama oh yo la 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 Allah lilla la la lilla lilla la la lilla lilla la la lilla lilla la la lilla la ya la ya la ya la la lilla lilla la ya la ya la ya la la lilla la ya la 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 ya la malla ya 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 la maya ya la malla lilla lilla la ya la la ya la maya Allah la la yedere malla lilla la 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 yedere malla lilla lilla la ya la la yedere malla lilla la ya la la yedere malla lilla ya la la yedere